This is going to be part one of a multi-part video where I'm going to tackle a Panasonic professional video recorder. This is a Super VHS deck, an AG DS850. Beautiful machine. This was a very expensive piece of equipment that would have been used in a studio or a very high-end production facility that was working with Super VHS. This machine has been abused and it is going to require a lot of work to get it going. But in part one, I'm going to tackle the first major problem I found with this, and there are a few. So we're going to look at all of the problems that this machine had and hopefully get it working. Now, unlike consumer decks, these were designed for a studio or professional application, so they were designed to be maintained on a regular basis. The screws actually have washers on the inside so the screws don't get lost, because the tops on these things were removed on a regular basis. They have these little retainers on the inside of the cabinet here, so the screws don't get lost, which is kind of a unique touch that a lot of the professional gear had. And that's just because these machines were designed to be serviced by the engineer on staff or an engineer, a contractor, and they were taken apart on a regular basis to have maintenance done on them. Very well laid out inside. Take a look at the boards. They're all individual cards on these things. So because these machines were designed for easy service, there's none of the conventional main board that's got everything mounted on it. All the components are actually mounted on these separate cards, which can be removed, and they can be operated with the card removed. They all connect in with these interconnect wires, and they're designed, again, these were designed for ease of servicing. I can see where this thing's been dropped. I can see some bending. If you look at one of the time-based corrector cards here, TBC2, looks like a big warp in this card. So this thing's really taken a tumble. You can actually see the frame itself has actually been bent. So I don't know what damage has been done in here. There may be significant damage, and there may not be much damage. So the first thing I'm going to do is just take off these covers and just inspect and see whether there's any breaks to the boards. So these are designed in such a way that you don't even have to remove the screw. You just loosen the screws and the retainer covers will hold the board in place, will just slide out. Now this one may be a little more difficult because I think this is the one that was bent. So I'm just going to loosen this one off just a little more. There we go. See, now that card just sprung back. That card was just pushed out of the way, so it may or may not be damaged. The guy that gave me this thing, he handed me a little bag with a part. He said this fell out of it, so looks like a little plastic lever is broken from somewhere. So let's see if we can figure out where this part went and what it does. Looking at this part here, it looks like this might be part of the front loading mechanism. This looks like to be one of the pieces that may open the flap on the tape door. Just guessing, but that's kind of what it looks like it might be. Let's first try powering this thing up and see if anything happens when I hit the power switch. Well, I got lights. The display lights up too, which is a good sign, and I hear the fan kick in. So that's a good sign. Let's just see if we can get a video signal through here on E2E. From the looks of things, it was dropped on this side here. You can see where the connectors have been bashed in. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to get a BNC on there or not. I may have to pull this apart and try and straighten these up. That one's bent big time. Video in, reference video. I think these are loop through, so these are an input and an output. That way video can be looped through this and then sent out to a monitor. And you have a little switch here for 75 ohm termination on or off. So typically, if this was not being used in a situation where this had its own dedicated monitor, you'd only have to connect a line input here and a video monitor output. Now it has both composite. It also has S-video in and out. There's the S-video in, the S-video out 1 and 2. It has video out 1 and 2. It has video monitor out, and it also has component output. So Y, PB, and PR, and timecode input and output. The audio on this is XLR. The reason there's 4 audio connectors is because there's actually 4 audio channels. It has channel 1 and channel 2 for the linear or the normal hi-fi or normal audio, and it has the hi-fi audio. So this one here is listed as normal / hi-fi audio in, and this one's labeled as hi-fi audio in. And then over here you've got normal / hi-fi audio out, 1 and 2, and hi-fi only out, 1 and 2. That way you can actually have 4 independent audio tracks recorded on this thing. And it has, of course, a remote control. But all I'm really interested in is, will this thing pass video? I'll put some color bars in here. I don't care about sound right now. I don't have XLR adapters handy. But I just want to see whether we're going to be able to pass a color bar signal through here. So I've got my color bar signal from my camera, and we'll plug it in and see whether we get anything through the output. It's going to make sure that I've got the right input selected here. It should be on input 1. Okay, I get something on the screen there, but not what I expect. I expect color bars. When I flip the switch on here, I'm seeing a flash of light. So now we know where we have to start on this. Let's see if it'll load a tape. Aha! It's not flipping open. It's not flipping open the lid. What I'd like to try and do is I'd like to try and see whether this thing, whether it's just a video input problem or whether we actually have a signal problem. So I was going to try and get a tape to load to see if it will actually play anything once the tape is in place. And that way it'll kind of narrow down what I have to look at. Because obviously we're not feeding any signal through from the video into the video out, but where is the problem? Is it one of these boards that are broken? Could be, because of the way this thing was dropped. We could have a shattered board in here. I just haven't taken it that far apart yet to see whether there is any serious damage. I want to see if I can get a tape to load first. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen, so I guess the next thing is we'll pull the bottom off this thing and just inspect the main board on the bottom and see if there's any breakage there. You can tell this unit had been used in a rack mount operation prior to it being sold and damaged, because all the feet have been removed on it, which is typically what they do when they're installing equipment in rack mounts, is they take out the feet. Okay, here's the bottom off the unit. Let's take a look at this board and see if there's anything obviously broken on here. As I say, we're not getting any signal through it, so it could be a break on one of these boards. So I'm just going to give this a close inspection and see if I see any actual physical damage to the board, and then we'll pull the one out at the back, because we know that the connectors are bent on that, so there's a good chance that the break is probably on that board, more likely than anything else, just from where it was dropped. Remove a bunch of screws from the back. Unplugs. The whole board unplugs actually from the rest of it. Let's see if we can unplug this cable here. Auto inspect this board, see if there's any breaks on this board or the one in behind it. So we're going to remove it completely. Get the remote disconnected here. I can put that through there if I can. Hung up on something. Yeah, that's got that free. And now I just have to unplug the video and the audio connectors, the interface board here. So we'll just unplug that one if I can. No breaking it. That's that one taken out, and this other one should plug also into the interface board, I think. It's the audio over here. The audio comes up here as well. Okay, that will now allow me to remove the back panel. Okay, I'm going to separate this because I want to check. There's another board in behind here. That's the one I'm interested in. That's the one that would have taken the brunt of the damage when this thing landed. So, a couple of red screws later, and this board should be out of the way. Oh yeah, there's a big break on this board. Huge break right here. I'll get a close-up of that as soon as I get these, as soon as I get this board separated from the other one. I'll do all these ribbon connectors at the top here. Put those out of the way. Now I'll do the audio connectors for the audio inputs and outputs. That's 1, 2, and 3 more. One for the fan. Okay, that board's out of the way. Now, here's where our serious damage is. This board is just beat pretty bad. Yeah. Okay, I think we see where the major portion of the damage to this is this board right here. It's actually got this whole piece is broken right off. So there's a lot of damage on this board. I don't know if this is going to be easily repairable. There's another break right here. You can see this board's got a couple big breaks in it. I think it's they're fairly good sized traces, so I should be able to bridge over most of these, I hope. I hope I'm able to bridge over them. I'm going to get the board out of here so I can look at it a little better. I don't even know if it's a double-sided board or not, but I got to remove the board to see that. Well, the cabinet's kind of warped here. I'm sure I can fix that. Alright, looks a little more straight. A little better. But that's not the big problem. The big problem on this is a circuit board that's broken in 3 places. That is why it's not working. So I have to repair this board, and once I repair the board, we'll see whether we can get any video through this unit or not. The good thing is that the traces that are broken are not huge traces. Like I see some grounds that are broken here, and I see like 2 or 3 traces that are broken here, which can obviously be bridged over with wires, which is exactly how I'll do it. I'll stick the board back together with epoxy or JB Weld to kind of hold the board together, and then I'm going to put jumper wires directly from one point to another. This is actually the time-based corrector, so I don't even need to worry so much about that. That's the TVC input and output, I think. Is it TV? No, time code. That's time code in and out, so I don't know that I need to worry too much about the time code in and out ability of this thing. Just make sure all the grounds are good, and make sure that the grounds are good here, and connect up the broken traces. The other piece of the board, this one here, this one's actually not completely broken. There's a switch that's ripped in 2 here. There's another break here, actually. There's a break here, and there's another break here. So this is the one that's got the most damage to it. And unfortunately, this is the one where the video input is, so that's got to be repaired. And this header, where did it go? This header here that plugs in up top here is also damaged. This one came out. But I'm just going to remove those so that they don't get. I guess I can leave them in here. Anyway, I have my work cut out to try to repair this one, and hopefully I will be successful. And if I can get video flowing through this thing, then I'll deal with the problems with the tape transport. Looks like the power cord's also been buggered up here. It's not broken, but it's pushed in. One side of it, if we look here on the back here, the power cord's working, but it's actually been broken right off the chassis, so the power cord goes in at an angle. So say this machine here, they didn't show any mercy when they dropped it. Whoever shipped this thing I don't know. I don't know what carrier they shipped it with, but it looks like somebody played football with it. Anyway, I'm going to concentrate first on trying to get this side of the board fixed first, because this is the side that's going to have the signals that are passing through it. So I'm just going to remove these little wires here so that I can try and get this board back together, and we'll see if I can patch it up and make the thing work. So I'm just going to mix up some JB Weld to kind of stick the board's pieces back together, hold them somewhat together, then I can work on patching the broken traces. But I just want to get some reinforcement to the board first of all. This one's been leaking. Get some reinforcement to the board first of all before I attempt to repair the damaged portion. So this stuff's an epoxy type of cement. It feels like the epoxy is actually coming out of this one because it's all over the tube. We'll mix these together, and then in a few minutes this will harden. My other light's just coming up, as you can see it. My work light shines right on my work space so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, now that's mixed, we'll get this on the board and start piecing the pieces back together as best I can. Goes together like that. Of course, now that I've mixed this stuff, I am kind of racing against the clock here to get it onto the board before it sets up. This will at least hold the board somewhat together. Okay, the board's kind of setting up now, so I'm just going to do some bridging across these big ground terminals. These are solid foil that goes all the way down here between these terminals. So I'm just going to bridge solder across the break. This will help reinforce this portion of the board here. I'll do the same down at this other break here where the board's been put back together. I'm just going to bridge over this section here, even though it's reinforced on the back with epoxy, reinforcing it on the front, bridging over the solder here, over the foil here will give it the added strength, and this is the ground. Just giving it a little more reinforcement there to hold that portion of the board together. I still have to put this other piece back together. I haven't done that part yet. I'm just getting the main portion of the board here, this part glued back together, and then I'll get the other piece on there, and then we'll start bridging over the actual brakes here, right, coming off of these connectors that go to like things like the S-video connector and the video in and out. Those are that's the big brake. So this board here, this was another clean brake, and again, there wasn't a heck of a lot broken off this one. It's just a couple really big connections. So this one here, I could probably just get by with just soldering this together, soldering the grounds together here, and then we'll reinforce the top side with epoxy, or put epoxy on the board first and then stick it together. And I think either way, if I just scrape the solder mask off and stick some solder across the brake here to hold the big portions of the copper together, then the epoxy on the back will certainly shore it up, no problem. Because this is all one piece here. This went right through to there, right? So I should be able to bridge that together, no problem. Of all the boards to break, this is the one that you want to break, because this is the easiest of them all to repair when you look at how the board's constructed. Big traces, and the small ones, there's not too many of them. It's a single-sided board. Like if you broke a double-sided or a multi-layer board, it's game over. You're screwed. But this is, of all the boards to break, this is the one that you really don't mind, because at least this one should be repairable. Now there may be other hidden damage that I haven't seen yet, but at this stage of the game, I'm thinking I'm probably going to luck out, and it's just going to be limited to this board. So here's where I've reinforced the board here, just waiting for this to dry, and some more on the top side here. And once this sets up, the board should be strong enough that I can start to repair the damage done by it being dropped, and let this thing set up for about probably half an hour or so, just to make sure that the epoxy is good and dry. And then we'll start trying to bridge the connections together and see whether I can actually make this thing work. Okay, glue has had enough time to set up here. I think my repair is probably going to be, my board's probably going to be fairly strong here. So now it's time to start repairing broken traces. Let the fun begin. Now some of these are easy to see where they go, other ones not so much, like this connector down here. I can see where some of the traces go, but I'm not 100% sure which pins they go to, so I'm going to have to get the meter out and try to measure the stub out from it, basically, to see which one goes to which pin, because they're not showing, like I can't see them. I'll scrape away some of the solder mask and see whether it'll help me identify where they go. I still wish my light worked. It's ridiculous. Okay. So what I'm doing here is I'm just scraping away the solder mask and flushing it away with isopropyl alcohol. That way I can see where the copper traces go and where they're connected, because ultimately I have to put a bridge wire in place, so I want to make sure that I'm following the right traces. And when they've got a painted mask over top of the solder mask, you can see through the green stuff, but you can't see through the yellow paint that's on them. So I actually have to scrape through that so I can see where the traces go that are underneath here. Now some of these I don't care about, because they go to unpopulated areas of the board. Like their connector here, looks like there was a version of this that had component input Y, R minus Y, and R minus B over here, and this one's just got composite. So I don't care about those inputs for that, because they're not populated. But I do have to find that the video input lead, which is here, it's connected to that pin. The shield goes through here, and it actually follows through on both sides of this pin, looks like, and it also connects up to the top here. This trace connects to this one. This trace here looks like it's connecting to that one. That ground is connected to that pin. This one here is connected to that pin, and the ground is connected to that pin there. So I'm able to see now where things go, and that'll make it a little easier when it comes time to actually put the bridge wires in place. And when I bridge them, I probably will bridge this one ground here. I'll bridge this in place just because that'll add some reinforcement to the board. But I won't try to bridge these connectors over these broken traces here. I'll actually solder a wire from here to there, and I'll solder a wire from this pin here to wherever this one here goes, which is way over here. That way I get across 2 breaks, right? That way I can try to maintain some reliability. If you just bridge short little wires over the break point, a lot of times if you just do it like with a single strand, they'll actually break. So I'm going to try and actually put proper wires in place here. And I know I'm going to be losing some of my shielding, but you know, it shouldn't make a big difference. You know, we're talking only an inch or 2, right? So it shouldn't really make that much of a difference. Basically, we're getting the video from the connector, from the input connector up to the header, which takes it off to the other board, and this one here coming from over here back to this connector. So anyway, looks like I'm making some progress here, and I should be able to get in here and start putting wires in momentarily. Now when I work on this stuff, I always use like a magnifier. I really need to get some proper wearable magnifiers that make it a little easier, because it's certainly not as easy as it used to be to see this fine wiring when I'm trying to trace things here. But at least with this, it makes it relatively easy to see where I'm going. So this first one here that broke, it actually goes all the way over to there. So we're going to put that wire in place first and then start working on the rest of them. Okay, I believe now I've got the first of the connectors has now been repaired, so now I have to move over and work on repairing these traces here. Once I've repaired these traces, then I've just got a few more over on this side over here to fix up, and then this board should be ready to go back into service for testing. So this is the S connector now, the S video connector that I'm going to solder down now, and even though I'm not left-handed, I'm going to use my left hand to hold the iron so I can get the wire in the right angle here. I don't know if you guys can see what I'm doing, but I'm just putting a new wire in place here to bridge the first of those S-video connectors in. So I'm just tracing the broken traces here. That was the first one. Second trace. So one of the pins, pin number 3, I think it is, yeah, pin 3, which has also got a resistor across it for termination, because that would be the video line. It comes along here and it goes to this one, pin number 8 of this connector. Pin number 7 goes back to ground, and pin number 6 traces back to pin number 4, which is the chroma connector. So we're going to put a jumper in place for those 2 next. Now the reason I'm using Cat5 wire for my connection is it's easy to work with. It's easy to peel the insulation off. All you basically do is just put a bit of heat on it and it'll melt. Right, so it's easy to peel the insulation off this stuff for working with it. So, and I've got lots of it kicking around, so it's easy. You know, it's just I use what I've got, right, and I've got tons of Cat5 wire around here, so. Do that one. There's that connector, that pin. Yeah, it's another one done. Let's say every one of these ones has to be done. So there's 2 more left on this particular connector that I have to take care of, and they're where are they going? I gotta follow this one all the way down to where it goes. It goes down to this other switch down here. So a couple more longer wires, and then this will be repaired. I think that's all the cracks on that board. No, there's a few more grounds up here that I got to take care of as well. There's a few more up here in this area here, but the last two here on this connector, and there's a few more down here, and then I just have to deal with the ones on this side. And then this should be ready to go back into the set to repair it or to test it. And again, when I say test, I mean if I get video through it, if I can plug my color bar generator into the input and I can see it on the output, then I'm happy. Then I can proceed with finding out why that tape cassette won't load. Now I've also been confirming with the meter when I eyeball one by tracing with the magnifying glass. I also go through with the meter and verify that that is the one that I think it is before I actually solder it down. So I have been double checking everything and triple checking everything, because some of these, especially when the traces cross under wires that I've already put in place, it makes it hard to see them. So when I think I see where it goes, I use the continuity feature of my meter just to verify that it is the actual trace that I think that I'm looking at. Okay, that's got that portion of the board repaired. Now I have to go back over to this other crack here and lift some of these wires up, and there's a few more that I have to repair down here. There's a few more traces down here that have to be repaired as well, and then we should be making our way to getting this thing working. Now that's connected here. I should be able to just actually repair that one. That's right at where a resistor is, so I should be able to just bridge right over that one. Yeah, that one's fixed. I've got the other side of it though I have to still fix. It goes to this switch right there. So this side of this resistor goes to the switch. I'm just going to get a little short jumper wire in there. The one there probably will be just fine. So with that, I'm down to the last couple of connections down here. I believe it's just the audio and the video outputs to the monitor out and the monitor audio out of the two that are still broken. Once I get those bridged, I should be able to. I'm not going to worry about the time code. I guess I could bridge them, but I'm really not. Again, I'm not that concerned about the time code ones, because I'll never use time code on this thing, and you never know though, right? Maybe I should bridge them, because maybe I'll sell this unit. You can get some bucks for it. Now, something I noticed on this is a lot of these jacks have the connections on them have all fractured. Like if I zoom in here, you'll see what I'm talking about. If you look at some of these connections here, they've all fractured from, I guess, from stress of connecting and disconnecting these BNC connectors. So I'm just going to go through here and just re-solder some of these connectors for the jack panel. Okay, now I'll just reassemble the two boards here. I'm going to bend over my wires here to make sure everything's nice and snug. Hopefully nothing's going to short out. We'll just put the boards back together. There's some standoffs on here that I think that's how it goes on. No, wait a minute. It goes on this way. There should be the three standoffs, and the board should snap together like that. Okay, that's got our two boards interconnected. Next thing is I'm going to remount the board back into the rear panel. And I've taken out the audio plug just to make it easier to mount this thing. Forgot I actually have to mount this board first before putting the other board on, because I have to get the audio connectors back in there, and they won't go in with this other board mounted. So I just have to get the connectors to fit through, and then I can put the screws in from the other side, and hopefully I won't break this board again doing this, because there's not a lot of room in here to get these things in. It's a very tight fit. Okay, I think I got the board fit now. I can start putting some of these metal screws in that hold the actual jacks in place, because that's what holds the board in place. It's fastened in from the back here, using all these screws, and each one of these BNC connector has one screw that holds it in place. So once we get all of these ones in place, that should support the board, and hopefully it won't. Hopefully it hasn't been damaged. Putting it back in, I was quite gentle at putting the board in, so hopefully it's going to work. But the good thing is everything lined up as it was supposed to. So that was the good part of this, is that all the connectors lined up and all the screws behind them look to be in the right place. Which definitely wasn't the case when I started, because the back was all bent. I had to, as you saw, I had to hammer it to make it somewhat straight. There are some plastic screws here that hold the S connectors in place. Of course, because of course an S video connector is a consumer type fitting. So they hold them in place with plastic screws, but all of the BNCs, well, BNC is a professional fitting, so it gets the right type of screws. Next goes in the XLR. I guess I can plug back in now. Plug that one in there, and I can. I'll wait till I put the board in. Next in place is the XLR connectors. They go in like that, and then they're fastened in using some different screws. They're very small screws. What we're going to do with them. There's a whole bunch of little tiny screws. Here they are. They're all fastened in with these little buggers here. So YouTube has finally admitted to what we suspected was the major cause of revenue loss for our monetized videos, and it's not encouraging news. What a lot of us suspected, in addition to other factors such as ad blockers, which account for some of the loss of revenue, but a lot of it was many advertisers have backed away, which is what we suspect, and this made the major media, I guess a few weeks back. But apparently the advertisers aren't too happy with some of the monetized videos that they have been associated with some channels exercising their right to free speech, as they would put it, where they have been carrying controversial material that is outside of the guidelines that is acceptable, the community standards guidelines. And anyway, what's been happening is some of the advertisers have been backing away. So that's what's affecting us. Kind of sucks for those of us that, well, really, especially for those that try to earn a living from YouTube. But I don't earn a living from YouTube, but I certainly do supplement my income. And it's seeing your revenue drop by over 50% over the course of a month is kind of depressing if you catch my drift. And I'm down over 50%. Yet my viewership is up. Number of views is up, but revenue is down. That's like walking into work and your boss saying, you know what, due to circumstances beyond our control, we're going to only pay you half of what we were paying you before. But we still want you to work here. That's basically what it feels like. And we really don't have much, we don't have any recourse on this whatsoever, other than hope that the situation will improve and that things will return to normal once YouTube gets their issues with their sponsors straightened away. Okay, got a couple of plugs to go in here. This one goes down here. This is the audio input. Drops in place like that. And the audio output goes in over here. Somehow goes in there, trust me. And the fan plugs in down here. Now that I've got the board reassembled into the base or the back of it, and I've got all the screws back in place, it's now time to reattach the unit onto the back of the VCR. Let's feed my connectors through here where they belong. This is the audio side, and I've got to bring through the remote. Okay, got the remote jack reconnected. Now we just have to put the back piece on here and line it up and plug in the connectors along the bottom. And they should line up with this board, and when I pop this together they should, in theory, plug in like that. I think they've plugged in. Okay, now we'll just put some screws in the back here to hold the back on, and we'll be ready to give this thing some power and see whether we get any video. Okay, we'll connect the audio and video plugs into the interface board. There's one, and there's the other. I'll connect my video in and monitor out to the TV and make sure it's turned on. The moment of truth when we power it up, and well, I've got more than I had before. I got something happening. That's better. That's better than I had before. I'm not getting my color bars, but my video out's working. So it appears to be my video in is not. Okay, I've connected S-Video. Let's switch this thing over from S-Video, from line to S-Video. And we also don't appear to be getting any S-Video either. So we still have a problem here, but we know the problem is probably not on this board. It's going to be something else. But as you can see, as this thing warms up, the picture is kind of returning to normal. So I'm thinking we have a capacitor problem on this thing. I'm just going to let this thing warm up because I'm thinking there's a capacitor problem on this unit. And this unit is full of those ugly surface-mounted capacitors. Because as you can see, as this thing has been running here for the last couple of minutes, it is becoming more stable. So I'm just going to monitor it for a bit here and see whether it actually clears up. As you can see, it's becoming more stable. So I have to say that this is definitely going to be a capacitor problem in this machine. And, well, look at this shit. Take a look. Get the camera up a bit. This is going to be ugly. At least the board's come out, but it's ugly still. This is one of these machines that use these ugly surface-mounted caps, and I guarantee you that we've got leakage in here. It's going to be in the luminance circuit, I'm pretty sure, because so probably this video board here, because the time-based corrector is clear, like the character generator is clear. If I unplug video, okay, the blue screen it generates and the on-screen graphics are good, but when I put video on, it's distorted. So I have a feeling it's probably going to be, it could be in one of these ones here, the video digital or the video IO. Anyway, ugly. We'll get in there with the freeze spray and see if I can start spraying down some of these caps and see if it goes bad. And that's going to be the way I determine where it is. See, now the picture's almost perfect. Well, it's too wide, and the colors are wrong. But I mean, at least it's stable, right? Colors are all out of whack, right? There's what your colors are supposed to be. White, yellow, cyan, green, magenta, red, blue. And as you can see, that should be white, that should be yellow, cyan, green, magenta, red, blue. Let's just try one of the other outputs on this thing, because this is the TV out. So let's just try, yeah, that one's bad too. And this has got luminance out. And of course I can't show the other ones because there won't be any color on those, because I'm not hooked up with component. But I guess I could hook this up. This has got component input, so I could look at the component output and see whether the component output's any different. The difference between these two outputs that I'm connecting here, one of this is the straight video out without the on-screen graphics, and the other one goes through the character generator so that you can set things up. Anyway, as you can see, it's definitely we have a capacitor problem, I'm thinking. So let's get the frost spray out. See if I can narrow it down. And what might you ask do I use for frost spray here? I don't go and buy the expensive stuff. Dust off, that's the stuff. Invert the can upside down and it becomes frost. Okay, I'm going to try and point this up here so that you guys can see the TV while I do this. And we're just going to go in here and just start to kind of hit. This is my video input output board here. I'm just going to kind of give it a broad. You see? Okay, so I just did a broad flushing down in here on this video input output board, and it's loaded with caps. So now that it's warmed up again, I'm just going to try some other areas on this board here and see whether anything else kicks in, or whether it's, oh yeah, see, this whole board, it's going to be all these bloody capacitors on this board, and it's loaded with them. Now I've killed the video completely. So we know where the problem is. It's on this board here, the video input output board. So let's pull this board out. Nice thing about these machines is that the boards just come out like that. And that is one hell of a lot of little surface mounted capacitors. It might be worth it to recap the whole bloody board. Right? I mean, this is they're all going to be bad, or at least the majority of them are going to be bad. It might be worth it to take an inventory and just go pick up a whole whack of surface mounted capacitors and just start changing them all on this board. I don't think this one doesn't have nearly as many on it. Yeah, this one doesn't have hardly, it doesn't have any. The audio boards don't have surface mounts. It's just the video board on this. But see, this is the beauty of these professional machines like this, is they were designed so you can just pull the cards out. This one's got a few on it as well, but doesn't have as many as the other one. This is the digital board. But that's the beauty of the professional gear. Anything that was designed for broadcast or professional use, everything was just carded. It was the way to do it. I mean, it was just beautiful, right? And you just drop the board in, drop it down the slot, plug it in. And as you can see, now that it's cold, it's going to go through this whole joke again. When it warms up, I'll get video. But I think maybe the option on this would be to just start changing all those caps and just go and pick up a whole bunch of actual surface mounted caps rather than deal with trying to put in ones with leads and solder them in. When you've got this many, just change them all, right? I mean, this is a machine that might be worthwhile putting some effort into, because if I can get this machine working, it'll be a really nice machine to have. So it's interesting, I figured out how to get through the different menus on this thing. And it's done by holding down the stop key, and you can select different, and use the jog dial. You can select which function you want. So that all appears to be working on here. What I'd like to do before I commit to, and then I can turn those off by just switching, where is it? Is it this one? There. Turn those graphics off. What I want to do before committing to buying a whole whack of capacitors for this thing is whether I can actually get a tape to play. So that'll be the next thing, is we'll get the front loading mechanism working on here, because if I can get this thing to play, even if it plays like with a crappy picture, then I can invest some more time and get this thing going. This could be my project for a while. And as I say, I got given this thing, a fellow brought me this and a few other things, and he bought it and it was dropped. But as you can see, yeah, the board was broken, but it's got a lot more wrong with it than that. And this is to be expected when you buy things from eBay. Sometimes we call it Fleabay or Rip-Off Bay. You buy old video equipment from eBay, you're really taking your chances, because most of the stuff is in pretty sad shape. Let's see how the heads feel on this. I can feel them. They're not, don't feel like they're worn right out. But I want to try and get this front loader to work. So I'm going to take the front loading mechanism apart. And if I can get this thing to play back, then it'll be a trip in to the electronics shop. I'll take an inventory of all the caps that I need, and I'll go and buy a whole bunch of them. And then we'll sit down and we'll change all the caps. And that'll be for another video, because I want to try and get this one published. So I think I'm going to call this video as it is, to where we got this to this state. And I'll make another video as I take the front loading mechanism apart and see whether I can get this thing to play. Thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll see more on this one. It's going to be a fun unit to work on. Bye for now.